All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our members of the community, our allies, and members of the media. On behalf of the People's Budget Coalition, thank you all for being here and joining us here outside of Long Beach City Hall. My name is Mei Lin.
And I'm Jamilette.
And together we're going to be co-emceeing our press conference this evening. So before we get started, I'd like to let the press know that our People's Budget Coalition speakers will be available for interviews after all the speeches have concluded. And if you're a member of the media, please see Melissa Morgan with Long Beach Forward for a press packet. And to all our speakers, we invite you to speak for 2 minutes each so that we can honor the time commitment for an LA Voice event that will be held immediately after this press conference. And a huge thank you for our interpreters for being with us.
We want to first start with an Indigenous land and African labor recognition statement. This statement is adapted from land acknowledgement work by the late Tagna leader, Julia Bagany, as well as Melina Abdullah from Black Lives Matter, Los Angeles, and Reverend Gregory Douglas of the Native American United Methodist Church in Anaheim. The People's Budget Coalition acknowledges that this land, which we inhabit, is so-called Los Angeles County and Orange County, is physically situated in the traditional ancestral territory of the Ahachimen and Gamberlino Tagna peoples, and all their bands, clans, and relatives. We acknowledge them as the traditional land caretakers of this land and pay our respects to their ancestors, elders, and to all our relations of Indigenous peoples, past, present, and emerging. We acknowledge their continuing presence in the homeland and throughout their historical diaspora. We also want to pay respect to those who were stolen from Africa, placed in bondage, falsely named as chattel, and forced into labor, who were called slaves but never submitted to such and have always been fully human with an unbroken connection to the divine and each other. We honor these African ancestors and still unpaid labor which has built what is now the Americas. To both our Indigenous and African forebears, we commit and continue to struggle for liberation and reparations, for it is the only through freedom and justice that we truly give honor.
Today, we stand united behind one central principle: Black Lives Matter. That's right. When we invest in Black lives and in the restoration of the Black community from generational, persistent, systemic harms, then we all win. As a multiracial, multilingual, multi-generational alliance, we stand in solidarity with Black and Indigenous communities, and we're committed to the liberation of all people. We call for the city's fiscal year 2023 budget to serve as reparations to Black and Indigenous people and communities.
Yes. Since 2018, the People's Budget Campaign has forced conversation and action for equity and justice through our Long Beach City budget. Here we are, 4 years later, coming together in an ongoing public health crisis. Here we are still fighting against systemic violence of poverty and policing in Long Beach. Here we are reminded of the institutionalized oppression driven by racism, capitalism, and white supremacy in our city. We believe it is long past due that our city officials reimagine community safety and wellness. It is a disgrace that after the murder of George Floyd, our city did not defund police. Say it louder. Boo!
Right now is the time for bold action. Our city must stop prioritizing police over community-led safety and Black liberation. Defunding LBPD is about community health and well-being. It's about being proactive with community solutions that improve our health and safety. It's about community care. We're tired of small thinking. We're tired of not in my backyard NIMBYs. We're tired of this pandemic. The wage gap has grown, and people, quite rightfully so, do not want to work for low pay anymore. And our houses community also continues to suffer. But we are here today because we love Long Beach. We are Long Beach. This is our beloved community. So we are calling on Mayor Garcia, our council members, and City Manager Tom Monica to adopt the people's budget. We demand that the mayor and council establish a zero-based budgeting process to fundamentally reprioritize spending. We demand that the city budget process be structurally reformed so that it centers co-governance with marginalized communities. Black people, Indigenous people, people of color, immigrants, youth, and older adults who are the most impacted by our city's budget decisions must be the ones who are co-leading and making the decisions that shape our budget and the whole process. So this is our 5th people's budget proposal. And we will not stop coming back year after year until our city's budget is a real community care budget.
They're gonna keep hearing this. The people's budget specifically calls for 2 strategies. First, divest from the police department. I'm gonna say that one more time. First, divest from the police department. There you go. We call on the mayor, council, and city manager to defund the Long Beach Police Department to end their pattern of systemic violence and the way they target low-income communities of color and stop criminalizing youth and poverty. We know that the police was born from slave patrols. Policing is not the answer to our community's most pressing needs. Instead, we need to prioritize jobs, housing, homelessness, health, and community care. That's right. This means cut police overtime, ban racially biased surveillance technologies, aka police toys, and charters a citizens police oversight commission with subpoena to disciplinary authority.
The second strategy is to reinvest in Black lives, communities of color, and marginalized communities. The mayor, council, and city manager must honor the fact that racism is also a public health crisis that we're still experiencing. We need to redirect resources to basic needs, to the community-led priorities that create health, opportunity, community, and justice so that all of us can thrive.
These community-led priorities consist of the 10 demands. 1. Invest in Long Beach Black Reparations Fund and Black-led community agency. This includes prioritizing Black healing, capacity building, re-entry youth opportunities, Black-centered systems, and community-led crisis response, violence reduction, and prevention. 2. Fully and structurally fund the Long Beach Tenant Right to Council program.
3. Establish and structurally fund a fully staffed rental housing division. 4. Invest in the formation and acquisition of the first Long Beach Community Land Trust.
5. Create a newly structurally funded ongoing rental assistance program for very low and low-income households. 6. Hire HUD-certified housing navigators to serve older adults and support older adult housing needs.
7. Establish a satellite multi-service center office to better serve more of our unhoused community, whom are disproportionately Black. 8. Dedicate adequate staff to fully implement the city's language access policy.
9. Publicly fund the Long Beach Justice Fund for universal legal representation for immigrants. And 10. Support climate justice by fully funding oil field abandonment reserves and increase investment in Long Beach Transit and the Long Beach Bike Share program.
So let's hear it for the People's Budget Fiscal Year 2023 demands. So now we're going to turn it over to our speakers to share more. So first up, let's give a warm welcome to Sheila Bates from Black Lives Matter Long Beach.
So first, I want to remind folks that we are here to make community demands about our money. This budget comes from our tax dollars and is supposed to serve our needs. A budget is a moral document. It is a literal prioritization with dollar signs attached. And 41% of the budget going to the police is a complete and utter failure. It was in 2020 when politicians made promises and said things that we are quite literally here to cash in on now. They declared racism as a public health crisis, and well, this is what follows, a people's budget. As the mayor and other city council members scramble for other political positions, we demand that they fulfill our demands now. It was 2020 when many of you first heard defund the police. But we've been saying this for years. It is not a snappy slogan. It is a policy demand that saves Black lives. It is a policy demand that seeks to finally serve us, the people, to serve the community. And in that vein, in an attempt to begin to address the harms of the past and continued ongoing harms by the city and the Long Beach Police Department, we demand a Long Beach Black Reparations Fund and a Black-led community agency that intentionally and unapologetically takes over half of the Long Beach Police Department budget. We demand that they establish a Long Beach Black Reparations Fund to seed a Black-led community agency that will provide a pathway to full reparations. Make no mistake, this without a doubt means monetary compensation to both individuals and institutions led by and accountable to Black communities. It demands an end to present-day policies and practices that perpetuate harms rooted in the history of anti-Black racism. This Black community agency will engage, build, and plan with local Black community, especially individuals who have been directly harmed by the police department, the war on drugs, and incarceration. Mass incarceration, let me be clear. Those who have experienced violence, or those who have experienced, especially those who have experienced violence at the hands of the police and Long Beach Police Department. It demands Black healing. Because when Black people heal, the whole community heals. Establish a healthy and generative, stable bodies and living conditions for Black people. It demands that we have programs for Black reentry, because Black communities have been disproportionately impacted by mass incarceration, and it is by no fault of our own. It demands Black youth opportunities and an establishment of space and opportunities for Black joy, youth development, enrichment, and cultural affirmation. It demands Black-centered systems that disrupt anti-Blackness that exist within the Long Beach institutions, every single one of them. And it demands a community-led crisis response and violence reduction prevention. It supports Black community-led crisis response and related to police and other systems, because we know that Black Lives Matter and all of our communities cannot wait any longer. We demand a people's budget. We demand reparations now.
Thank you, Sheila. So next, let's please welcome Joshua De Leon to discuss our new anti-surveillance tech campaign.
All right, Long Beach, are you with us? Okay. Let's let them hear us in there. Long Beach, are you with us? Much better. Everyone who's here, thank you for being here. My name is Josh De Leon. I am a Filipino-American community organizer born and raised here in Long Beach. And I'm here on behalf of a citywide coalition against the mass surveillance of our community. I want to put this in perspective. In just the last half hour we've been here, the Long Beach Police has scanned nearly 1,000 different license plates across the city. And it's not just the car that you drive that's being watched. Nearly half of all adults in the United States, over 117 million people, are in facial recognition databases. That means many of us here, our faces, without our knowledge or our consent, are on the databases of law enforcement. These are faces in a digital lineup that are unjustified, unaccountable, and unseen. Over the last several years, the Long Beach Police continues to surveil our community day in and day out, in more ways than most of us realize. Every single day you get in a car, You might get captured by an automatic license plate reader. Every time that you walk by a surveillance camera, your face might get picked up by a facial recognition database. And every time you use your cell phone, there's a chance that they are using what's called stingray cell phone tracking to trick your phone into giving you its information. All of these and more are alive and watching us every day. So let me ask us, does that make us feel safe?
No!
Does being watched by the LBPD all the time make us feel safe?
No!
These technologies are everywhere, but we know, if we are here, we know that they are also disproportionately harming those who are Black, brown, Indigenous, people of color, and undocumented community members. We are the ones on the front lines of this pain. And that is why we are demanding change, because there is a risk and there's also a harm that has already been done. There are strong allegations that LBPD and its contractors are sharing license plate data with ICE of our undocumented community members. There are strong allegations that Long Beach police spying on protesters engaged in the Black Lives Matter movement. And all this despite the fact that a lot of these technologies are kind of bad, are often inaccurate, can in many cases misidentify people or be unable to actually effectively and accurately identify the people in its system. So it is wrong, it is racist, and it is flawed. So we, as a multi-generational, multiracial, and multi-sectoral movement, as an anti-surveillance coalition, have the following demands. One, we urge the Equity and Human Relations Commission to maintain its commitment to a full ban on Long Beach Police's use of surveillance technologies. This means a permanent and prospective ban, like in the city of Oakland, and do not support an oversight committee. We demand the city terminate the contracts for all the surveillance technology that LBPD currently uses, including for facial recognition, license plate readers, stingray cell phone tracking, and any other surveillance against our civilians. Three, we demand that LBPD end its participation in LACRIS, the Los Angeles County Regional Identification System, run by the LA Sheriff Department, as well as the Department of Homeland Security run Fusion Center in Los Angeles. And finally, we demand accountability and transparency regarding the current and the past, the history of surveillance against our community by LBPD. These are our demands, but we need all of you here and watching remotely to move forward and stand along with us. Tomorrow at 6 p.m. online is the Equity and Human Relations Commission meeting. There will be a presentation that will share the flaws and the challenges of this technology and an opportunity for public comment. If every one of us here flooded those channels with our voices and our opinions, we can make that uplifted and heard. And finally, as a reminder for all of us, we standing together have to be the ones to keep us safe, because who keeps us safe?
We do!
Because who keeps us safe?
We do!
Thank you.
Thank you, Joshua. So one quick reminder just for all of us to be respectful of time. When you're up here, Andre is going to have some timekeeping guidelines. I know we all have so much to say. Okay, so thank you, Joshua. So next, let's please welcome Don Matkins from Black Agency.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Dawn Matkins. You may know me more so in our years of work, this last almost a decade, with Black Lives Matter and Black Lives Matter Long Beach, Black Lives Matter globally. About a year and a half ago, we began Black Agency. And as Black Agency, becoming a container, a place, and an entity that is supporting our community in organizing, supporting our community and understand the power of collective solidarity around improving the conditions that we're all impacted by. The Reparations Fund intention is to seed that effort, right? For us, for Black community to establish its own space of self-determination. But we know that each of us don't do that work in isolation, right? No one group is going to win alone. The other hat that I'm hearing today is my LA Voice hat. LA Voice, for some of you who may not know, is a countywide faith-based community organization which Long Beach ICO recently merged with during the pandemic. We represent over about 60 congregations across the county, about 40 of which recently participated in a pretty elaborate power campaign over this last 9 months. It consisted of a series of deep listening, first the establishment of a member-led leadership body, deep listening that body entered, identifying what is most important, the top priorities for our faith community. What are those difficult conversations that families are having at the dinner table every night? What are our community's greatest sources of hope right now? That group, our faith community had over 2,300 conversations across the county and about 300 conversations just here in Long Beach over a month, 1 month. 3 anchor congregations that participated in this relational power listening was the Universalist Unitarian Church of Long Beach. You'll hear from Patricia Chin from the UU Church this evening. There's a LA Voice program beginning at 6:30. You'll hear from Reverend Gallardo and I just want to acknowledge Chosen Generation, Pastor Cedric Nouns, whose father passed away, and so they were unable to be here tonight. But one of our congregations, St. Luke's Episcopal Church, St. Luke's is in the house, is going to talk about one of the demands next having to do with the prioritization, one of the priorities that came up in our listening around housing, homelessness, and income insecurities, looking at guaranteed basic income. I will get out of the way, pass it to Reverend Gallardo, who will include a piece with Gail.
Thank you very much. Buenas tardes. ¿Cómo están? So here with me today is Gail Mook. I'm going to ask her to talk briefly about the services that we provide and the relationship of trust that we have developed at St. Luke's over the years with the unhoused population.
Thank you. For over 20 years, St. Luke's Episcopal Church has had a homeless shower program 4 Saturdays a month. We provide, from the help of other congregations and community partners, we provide a meal, we give clean clothing, and a shower to those who want it. We service 100 people a Saturday. About 36 men get a shower, about 30 women get a shower, and we are so blessed that we have so many community partners. We couldn't do it by ourselves. So we have other needs besides what we're currently getting. Since we've been for 20 years, you know we're succeeding, but we have other needs, and Father Gallardo is going to ask about that.
Thank you, Gail. Over 20 years developing that trust with the community. I have been in St. Luke's for 6 months, and in the past 6 months, I have learned that showers and food and clothes is not enough. It's not enough to call people, give them a dignifying life. Every week, I get at least 2 calls from unhoused people asking for additional help. Last week, I have a lady who called me that she was afraid to live on the streets. And when I asked her what she was doing, she talked about going to the multi-center, which is the right thing to do. And when she went there, she was given a Section 8 voucher, but she cannot find housing where she could go and live with that voucher first. Then I asked her about the possibility of asking for a hotel voucher. And she said she was granted one, but the wait list is as long as April. So she's been waiting since April to live decently. That's wrong, right? Yes. The second thing is, last Sunday after the service, as I was leaving the church, I saw a lady under the sun in a stroller crying, scorching heat. Her name is Sherry. When I went to talk to Sherry, someone has stolen her wheelchair. And someone brought her stroller. She was hungry. She was under the 85 degrees sun. She couldn't move because she couldn't walk. She had nobody to push her. We call the police to see how to get help. There is no help. The multi-center, I think, is doing a great job from what I heard, but the location is not the most convenient. We need to have a most convenient location for these people, and that's why we're demanding funding to create a satellite of a multi-center at St. Luke's Episcopal Church. We want a satellite there because we have developed over the 20 years the cultural competency and the trust to build relationship with this population. We need that funding. We know the funding that the Department of Health and Housing have is not enough. So we need funding to create a multi-center at St. Luke's. We have the facilities, we have the trust, we need the money. So help us to vote to get that funding for the unhoused friends and family. And now,
Thank you so much. Now we're going to go ahead and have Karen reside with the Long Beach Gray Panthers.
I am Karen Reside, and I'm the president of the Long Beach Gray Panthers. We're an advocacy and education group for older adults, seniors, and I'm here today to talk about our demand, which is we're asking for $1 million to fund housing coordinators, housing navigators at 5 senior centers here in the city. The Reverend was absolutely correct. The multi-service center, which is where people are supposed to go for housing, is located on the same street where the trucks enter the port to line up to pick up their loads. There is no sidewalk, and people that are in wheelchairs and walkers, it is not safe for them to go there. We also have an ask to ensure safeties of our seniors. Seniors help build this community, and they deserve to end their lives with dignity and live it the way they want to. So these are our demands, and we hope you'll all support them.
Thank you, Karen. Now we're going to go ahead and have Sharon Buckley come in from Libre.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Sharon Buckley, and for the past 7 years, I have been a renter in Long Beach at Long Beach and 21st Street Apartments. Throughout these 7 years, my neighbors and I have struggled with threats and intimidation from both WSH Management Company and their live-in landlords. So much so that we are forced to form a tenants union to fight back. The past 3 years were especially difficult time for us as we had a new manager, Herlinda Gonzalez. She berated and continuously harassed the tenants. Her harassment was boundless, everything from eviction threats to illegally entering tenants' apartments to creating a slum condition. Tenants were afraid to leave their apartments and were forced to purchase cameras for protection from the landlord. There was no such thing as privacy and peaceful living. This is just the tip of the iceberg of the issues that we were having in the units of our building. This is why we are calling on the mayor and city council to strengthen the promises they have made to Black, Indigenous, and undocumented families renting in our community and our city, because we know that when they invest in the restoration of these communities, we will all win. We want a city budget that truly commits and invests in the city's housing element program. This includes 1, fully funding the Long Beach Right to Counsel program to provide legal representation and resources to all renters, regardless of their immigration status, so we can prevent homelessness. 2, establishing a fully staffed rental housing division to enforce tenant protections, so families like ours have somewhere to turn when landlords are not making the changes needed for safe homes and housing. 3, investing in the formation and acquisition of the first Long Beach Community Land Trust to create permanently affordable homes and give many low-income families their first real chance to become a homeowner. And lastly, we need the city to create a new program for ongoing rental assistance for low-income families. Thank you.
All right, now give it up for Mayra Garcia, also with Libre. Se me hace que ya alguien está aquí. Pero voy a hablar en español.
¿Está bien?
Sí, por favor.
Mayra, te voy a decir al minuto para que ya sepas si empezar al
¿Quiere traducir simultáneo? Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Mayra García.
Good evening, my name is Mayra Garcia.
Soy de la Coalición de Justicia del Lenguaje.
I'm part of the coalition Language Justice.
Creo que sinceramente todo ser humano tiene derecho a comunicarse en su idioma principal,
I believe every human has the right to communicate in their main language,
tener un traductor calificado y certificado
to have a certified translator
que pueda traducir simultáneamente.
that can translate simultaneously.
No es un privilegio, es una necesidad.
It's not a privilege, it's a necessity.
Y desafortunadamente me ha tocado presenciar en el concilio escuelas, incluso en cortes, que debido a la mala calidad de la interpretación,
And unfortunately, I have attended some meetings, even in courts, where that unfortunately, due to the bad interpretation render,
se distorsiona y se da otro contexto a la verdadera intención del asunto.
the message given to translation is wrong, and that's due to the poor translation.
Siendo así que se hagan prácticas médicas equivocadas, que se dé una educación o colocación errónea,
And also into consideration that can be also cause of malpractice, medical malpractice, and provide a false statement.
En casos del concilio hay que traducirle en ocasiones al traductor que no entiende los términos políticos.
Sometimes during our meetings in the concilium, we also had to step in and provide the interpreter some terms that might be political related.
Y esto provoca una pérdida de tiempo. Incluso el caso de la corte de mis compatriotas terminan en cárcel por negligencia de mala interpretación.
And this consequence can be seen as a wrong interpretation and false incrimination. And some of my colleagues end up in jail because the translation was not rendered correctly.
Justicia del lenguaje, dedicar el personal adecuado para interpretar completamente en la póliza de acceso al lenguaje.
Language justice needs to be part of the policy for access to language.
De la ciudad de manera consciente en toda la ciudad y servicios de interpretación de traducción internamente.
It needs to be also citywide. It needs to be provided just not internally, but in the whole city. And it needs to be provided interrelated.
Para brindar una interpretación y traducción más rápida y de mayor calidad para los residentes.
Also to provide a accurate interpretation and fast interpretation to all the residents.
Con el dominio limitado de inglés.
With the limited domain of the English language.
Proporcionar interpretación en español.
Also to provide interpretation into Spanish.
Y Kamai en todas las reuniones del concilio y comisiones de la ciudad.
And also in common with all the concilium and all the meetings that happen throughout the city.
Sin tener que hacer una solicitud por adelantado.
Without having to have the request with anticipation.
Dedicar recursos a la necesidad del lenguaje que no cubren los especialistas.
There needs to be funds and resources for language justice, and that is not part of the specialties that are required. There needs to be the main budget.
de accesos a lenguajes internos para garantizar inclusión en el lenguaje.
Also to be part of the access to language internally as part of the inclusivity of language.
Y el acceso equitativo para todos los miembros de la comunidad de Long Beach.
And access that is equal for all community on Long Beach.
Proporcionar a las organizaciones comunitarias que trabajan con comunidades de lenguaje marginado.
And we need to also provide access to language interpretation to all the communities that are marginalized.
Estipendios continuos para llevar actividades de divulgación de póliza.
And continuous stipends to provide the sharing of the policy of the language justice.
Gracias, libre.
Thank you. Let's pray.
Shout out to Elsa for coming through, y'all. As you can see, language is hard, right? And the city wants to give pennies to language? That's bad. That's bad, y'all. We deserve better. And we're trying to take care of each other here as we're trying to make it as inclusive as possible. Thank you, everybody. Now we're gonna go ahead and invite City and Eric. Last but not least, City and Eric, where you at?
Hi everyone, glad to be here and stand in solidarity with everyone here. My name is Sidi Ben. I am a Long Beach resident who is an ordained minister, the co-founder of the Maynew Foundation, and a proud member of the Long Beach Reentry Advisory Council. I am here to express to the Long Beach City Council why it is important to expand the Long Beach Justice Fund by $1 million. I am also a Cambodian immigrant. I came here as a toddler and became a lawful permanent resident when I was 4 years old. Growing up, I made some poor decisions. I faced the consequences of those decisions, one of which was incarceration. I had a spiritual transformation in prison, and after serving my time, just when I was preparing to return to my family, I was transferred to ICE instead. Double punishment for not being born here. I was unrepresented, no attorney whatsoever, through the whole immigration proceeding, and now have an order of removal, which means I could be facing deportation to Cambodia at any time. Never been to Cambodia before. Wasn't even born on Cambodian land. However, I am so fortunate to be a resident of Long Beach because I benefited from the Justice Fund. Because of it, I now have an immigration attorney. I needed this. Thanks to the Justice Fund, I now have legal representation. I now have a fighting chance to remain with my family, with my children and grandchildren. Yes, I do have grandchildren. Yeah. Long Beach will spend almost half of his money, our money, on the police. Police are a tool to control people with violence, not to solve problems. Black and brown community get police, while others get health care and housing, parks, and programs. Rather than use money to alleviate poverty, the city spends it to keep poor people in their place. It doesn't have to be this way. We can spend our money to give to everyone the things we need, the things that really keep us safe. One of those things is the Long Beach Justice Fund, which will protect people from deportation. Why are people facing deportation? Often police. Almost everyone in our community who is arrested because they had contact with the police. Why? Too many cops, not enough care. When police target black and brown communities, black and brown people end up in jail or prison. When the people who go to jail are not citizens, they also face deportation and double punishment like me. We can't undo the harm police have already caused our communities, but we can protect them from more harm. We can put our money in the communities, not cops, and we can use some of that money to make sure our immigrant community members don't fight deportation alone. So we are here to plead with the council member, expand the Long Beach Justice Fund by $1 million.
Thank you, City. Now I'm going to pass it over to Eric, and we do have one more speaker, y'all. You don't want to miss out on the last speaker either.
So I'm going to translate for City. Mi nombre es Sidi Ben, soy un residente de Long Beach y soy ministro ordenado y cofundador de Maynew Foundation y un orgulloso miembro del Consejo Asesor de Reingreso de Long Beach. Estoy acá para expresarle al Consejo de la ciudad de Long Beach porque es importante expandir el Fondo de Justicia de Long Beach por hasta $1 millón. También soy un inmigrante camboyano. Vine aquí cuando era un niño pequeño y me convertí en un residente permanente cuando tenía 4 años. Al crecer, tomé algunas malas decisiones y por las cuales enfrenté las consecuencias, una de las cuales fue el encarcelamiento. Tuve una transformación espiritual mientras cumplía mi condena y después de servir mi tiempo, justo cuando me preparaba para reingresar con mi familia, me transfirieron a un centro de detención de ICE. Un doble castigo por no haber nacido aquí. No tuve representación legal ni abogacía en absoluto durante todo el proceso de inmigración. Y ahora tengo una orden de deportación, lo que significa que podría enfrentar la deportación a Camboya en cualquier momento. Sin embargo, estoy tan afortunado de ser residente de Long Beach porque me beneficié del Fondo de Justicia. Por eso ahora tengo un abogado de inmigración y está pidiendo mi perdón. Yo necesitaba esto. Gracias al Fondo de Justicia ahora tengo representación legal. Ahora tengo la oportunidad de luchar por permanecer aquí con mi familia, con mis hijos y con mis nietos. Sí, tengo nietos. Long Beach gastará casi la mitad de su dinero, nuestro dinero, en la policía. La policía es una herramienta para controlar a las personas con violencia, no para resolver nuestros problemas. Las comunidades negras y de color son vigiladas, mientras que otras obtienen atención médica y vivienda, parques y programas. En lugar de usar el dinero para aliviar la pobreza, la ciudad lo gasta para mantener a los pobres en su lugar. No tiene que ser así. Podemos gastar nuestro dinero para dar a todas las cosas que necesitamos, las cosas que realmente nos mantendrán seguros. Una de esas cosas es el Fondo de Justicia de Long Beach, que protegerá a las personas de la deportación. ¿Por qué las personas se enfrentan a la deportación? A menudo la policía. Casi todas las personas de nuestra comunidad que son arrestadas por ICE son arrestadas porque tuvieron algún contacto con la policía. ¿Por qué? Demasiados policías, poco cuidado para nuestras comunidades. Cuando la policía ataca a las comunidades negras y de color, las personas negras y de color terminan en la cárcel o prisión. Cuando las personas que van a la cárcel no son ciudadanos, también enfrentan la deportación, que viene siendo un doble castigo. No podemos deshacer el daño que la policía hasta el momento ha causado en nuestras comunidades, pero podemos protegerlos de más daño. Podemos poner nuestro dinero en nuestras comunidades, invertirlo y no en la policía. Podemos usar parte de ese dinero para asegurarnos de que los miembros de nuestra comunidad inmigrante no luchen solo contra la deportación. Así que estoy aquí para demandar a los miembros del Consejo que amplíen el Fondo de Justicia de Long Beach a $1 millón. Nosotros hemos visto en nuestra comunidad aquí cómo se ven afectadas las personas de color más que otras, y por el sistema criminal y por el sistema de inmigración. El Fondo de Justicia se utilizará para reinventar estas comunidades, las comunidades marginadas, las comunidades de color, y les ayudará a luchar contra el doble castigo. Gracias.
All right, y'all. We're almost there. We're almost there. Our last speaker. Give your loudest shout to Michelle Lois.
Hello, my name is Michelle Lewis. I am a resident of Long Beach, born and raised, and I am a member of the city's new Youth Climate Corps program. But I am here today as an activist with Sunrise Movement. The Sunrise Movement is a youth movement to stop climate change and create millions of good jobs in the process. We stand in solidarity with the People's Budget Coalition to demand a budget that prioritizes community care, not cops. We know that climate justice is inseparable from racial justice, and we demand that our public money be spent according to these public demands from the community. I am standing here today because I love Long Beach. I love our amazing, resilient, and diverse community, and I know that together we can create a city budget that provides for the needs of all its residents and not just the wealthy few. Our city has acknowledged the seriousness of the climate crisis, but has failed to take any serious action to protect our communities from extreme heat, dangerous air quality, and sea level rise that threatens more of our lives every year. The few solutions Mayor Garcetti has offered has lacked substance and a basic understanding of our material needs. Our budget demands today are practical, address the root causes of the climate crisis, and would make a significant impact on the lives of working class people in Long Beach. 1, we demand that the city fully fund our oil field abandonment reserves and immediately transition away from fossil fuel production. In short, stop making the climate crisis worse. 2, we demand true public transportation. Public means free. What does public mean?
Free!
Increase the investment in Long Beach Transit and the Long Beach Bike Share to provide fairless public transit for all. This will support the city's racial justice, street safety, public health, and greenhouse gas reduction goals, and will make a significant impact on the lives of working class people who depend on public transit every single day. We cannot afford to wait any longer for real action to tackle the climate crisis and protect the people we love and the city we call home. We demand the City Council to pass the people's budget. Thank you.
Let's give it up one more time for all of our amazing speakers. So I know we're all pumped, and we need all of you. We need each and every one of you to continue to build people power. To stay connected, look us up on our new Instagram page, People's Budget LB. You can also go to lbforward.org/peoplesbudget. So as we conclude our press conference, we're going to invite up Reverend Melinda Teeter Dodge from Clue to Close. So afterwards, all our speakers and representatives will be available for interviews, and we invite you to stay for the LA Voice Power Campaign program that's going to begin shortly afterwards. So I'll hand it over to Reverend Melinda.
Thank you so much for everyone who's gathered and made this powerful time together happen. My name is the Reverend Melinda Teeter Dodge. I'm the pastor of Community and Connection for a collaborative movement of 3 United Methodist churches in Long Beach. And I also represent hundreds of faith leaders across our county with Clergy and Laity United for Economic Justice. And together we are unified in our support of the people's budget for 2023. Let's make it clear that all of the demands and priorities we just heard this evening in the people's budget are neither political nor financial issues. They are demands that stem from our very moral and spiritual fiber. These demands are rooted in humanity's highest value, a deep love and dignity for all persons as beloved children of God. Across many faith traditions, we learned that we were created to be intimately interconnected, that no one of us can be whole or well if some one of us is not. If one of us is hungry, all of us are hungry. The people's budget is an embodiment of our love and care for the well-being and prosperity of the city of Long Beach, and it works to articulate how our city's resources can care for all persons so that all persons can thrive. All persons can thrive in our great city. In the Christian tradition that I follow, there's a story known to many as it's called the loaves and the fishes, and it's often taught as a miracle story that our Lord performed a miracle and he fed thousands of people from just a few meager loaves of bread and fish. But this evening, as we announce and call upon our city's leaders to embrace the people's budget, I would share another understanding of this story. As the city of Long Beach and the beloved community gathered tonight, we need to ask, how did thousands of people get so hungry in the first place? How did that happen? And we need to consider that maybe the real miracle of the story, of our story, is not through any divine intervention per se, but through the moral and spiritual fiber of those hungry, beloved children who gathered that day and used their budgeted resources so that everyone could be fed and everyone could hunger no more. Advocating for the people's budget is an act of love, for our city. Who loves Long Beach? I love Long Beach. Yes, who wants all persons of Long Beach to be safe and thrive? All of us do. It is time to speak out and up for the city we love. It is time to speak out and up and pass the people's budget. Now. Thank you.
Now I'm calling for President Damari to come to the stage.
Hi everyone, I'm President Morgan Barnes. I'm going to ask that y'all repeat after me in a chant by an activist named Asada Shakur. She was a part of the Black Liberation Army and the Black Panther Party and is now in exile in Cuba. We're going to say the chant 3 times, and the first time we're going to start with a whisper and each time get louder. So repeat after me. It is our duty to fight for freedom.
It is our duty to fight for freedom.
It is our duty to win.
We must love and protect one another.
We must love and protect one another.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
It is our duty to fight for freedom.
It is our duty to fight for freedom.
It is our duty to win.
It is our duty to win.
We must love and protect one another.
We must love and protect one another.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
It is our duty to fight for freedom.
It is our duty to fight for freedom.
It is our duty to win.
It is our duty to win.
We must love and protect one another.
We must love and protect one another.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
Thank you.